Over to you, John.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Hope everyone's having a good day and a nice evening. Tonight's topic is attention, and I call attention the foundation. It's kind of the base of what we need from a learning standpoint. So as this slide says, attention is an important cognitive ability. We rely on attention for so many tasks, such as driving, preparing meals, handling tools safely, performing tasks at work, studying, paying attention in conversations with friends. However, when attention is impaired, people are at risk of injuring themselves, social faux pas, and feeling overwhelmed or not understanding concepts because they're just not able to access and retain all of the information that they need to complete those tasks. So, what do attention skills help us with? Well, they enable us to focus on the work at hand, learn and understand both written and oral information, and also help us think about a given subject. Strong attentional capacities may be required in order to concentrate on something in an extremely noisy environment, like an open plan office setting. And as Jen said, like the dog barking in the background, that would have been a perfect test for everyone, including your presenter, to make sure that I'm able to stay on task. We can also divide our attention between several activities. For instance, we can drive while having a conversation with a passenger, but when attention is divided between several tasks, it requires more brain resources. Aging is correlated with a decrease in attention resources and a higher sensitivity to interference. And this results in people being less efficient with age when doing multiple simultaneous tasks. Attention is also necessary for learning new concepts. Think about it. In order to learn anything, we have to pay attention to what experts or teachers tell us, or concentrate our attention to read a book so that the information and new knowledge can be memorized. So if you're not able to focus, you're not going to be able to memorize. So without attention, we could never memorize or master new material. Now, attention is not only strongly dependent on what is happening in your environment, we look at external factors, but also on what's happening inside of us, our mood, our motivation, our priorities, our interests. So we have both internal distractors and external distractors. The capacity to easily engage, release, and then re-engage your attention is one of its inherent qualities. It's needed when you must process information alternatively, skipping from one information source to another. Learning to skillfully control one's attention is therefore a great asset. Now, we have different forms of alertness that enable us to manage these factors. We have the technical term tonic alertness, and this is also called wakefulness. And then this occurs during the first part of the day and can be combined with sustained attention to enable us to carry out physical activities that may go on for longer periods of time. So think of the baseball player. Then we have phasic alertness, and this is a brutal and temporary change in wakefulness triggered by an event in the environment. So, one of those external factors, someone entering the room, a loud noise outside. So, for example, you're in your home and you hear some fireworks outside. You're watching television. You then come back to the TV and it's like, okay, let's see if I can pick up where I left off on that show. So depending upon the importance of the event, it will cause you to temporarily disengage from the activity at hand. If the event is irrelevant, you'll be able to quickly disregard it thanks to the mechanics of inhibition, and you'll be able to return and be fully engaged in the activity. So now, what is the difference between attention and concentration? We tend to use these terms synonymously. However, they're a little bit different. Attention is an on and off activity, and we can choose to pay attention to something or not. On the other hand, concentration has levels or degrees, though it's hard to measure these levels. Paying attention to something is like focusing the spotlight of a torch in the dark. One can pay attention to several activities at any given time. When one is concentrating hard on an activity, they become oblivious to their surroundings, as a player in a sporting activity or a musician trying to make a new tune or melody. The process of paying attention for any length of time on an activity or an object is referred to as concentration. And concentration is an ability that can be improved with practice. So there are 4 different kinds of attention that are related to our cognitive abilities. One is sustained attention. One is alternating attention, divided attention, and selective attention. So, sustained attention. That is the ability to keep focus or concentration for long periods of time, even if the individual is exposed to a repetitive action or activity. So this is the kind of attention that usually occurs for the majority of learning and working activities, like listening to a teacher lecture the whole hour, read books and notes the whole night to review if you're studying, in answering test or exercise questions, completing a project, or regularly working on a repetitive task. Now, this type of attention is very beneficial, but it's the kind that's oftentimes very hard to acquire or achieve. Then we have selective attention. So when faced with several environmental factors or stimuli, the human brain naturally responds by selecting a particular aspect or factor to focus on. That's known as selective attention. And so people use this cognitive ability almost all of the time. Every day, people are usually exposed to several environmental factors at home, at school, or at the office, but their brains respond by focusing only to the factors that matter most, or those that people choose to focus on. Okay. Then we have alternating attention. As its name suggests, it's the ability to switch or immediately transfer your focus or concentration from one activity to another. The brain instantly adapts, even if the succeeding activity has a different level of knowledge or comprehension required. Like selective attention, alternating attention is also an ability that is used almost all the time. Every day you need to make sudden changes on your activity or action, which also requires your attention to shift. And the last kind of attention is called divided attention. And divided attention is the ability of an individual to focus or concentrate on two or more environmental factors, stimuli, or activities simultaneously. Experts call it the ability to multitask. Now, I don't recommend multitasking. It is very, very difficult, and it can be very, very frustrating for individuals. And it basically, it basically will cause more problems, and we will try to work on that in therapy, but it ends up increasing one's anxiety, stress, and when that occurs, we find that cognitive ability decreases. Okay, so how do we carry out attention interventions? Well, there are some computer-based attention training programs that are out there. They are computerized. There are formal attention training programs that can be purchased. There are also video games that address certain components of attention, which could also be used. So for example, shooting at targets among auditory and visual distractors. And then there's training tasks that can be created that simulate various cognitive tasks of attention. And there's a task called the Stroop Test. And it's one that, say, the word is red, but it is colored white. And the task would be, you have to say what the color of the word is, not what the printed word is. Now, attention training tasks should address a specific type of attention, and we're going to go into that now. So first, there is focused attention. And this is the basic ability to respond to stimuli sequentially presented in a certain modality, be it visual or auditory. And tasks include watching for targets. So you're looking for either arrows pointing up, down, left, right. And then it's interspersed with distractors. There might be letters or numbers. And the complexity of the tasks can vary by increasing the similarity of the distractor to the targets. So arrows pointing down as opposed to letter distractors. Then we have sustained attention. So we're looking at the ability to maintain a consistent response in the face of a continuous repetitive activity. Tasks include listening for ascending or descending sequences of numbers among numbers that are presented verbally, or alphabetizing words in an orally presented sentence. So for example, we're saying, tomorrow is Tuesday. And so you would have to alphabetize those words. And then what we would also do is increase the length of the sentence. So you have to be able to follow more stimuli. Then there's selective attention. It's the ability to maintain a response set despite distractions, or the ability to inhibit responses to competing information. So some tasks would include listening for a certain tone or word with competing background noise, or watching for a visual cue on a screen that also includes other distractor items. So you're looking for an arrow, but there might be numbers, there might be letters, there may be words. Then alternating attention. Some of the tasks would include pressing a computer key when a certain color arrow appears, or when the arrow points in a certain direction at other times, and the number of responses required or interval before the target dimension changes can be varied in order to increase the complexity. So that's the toughest task. And then we have divided attention. And tasks include performing a simple sorting task while also monitoring the time to determine when a certain time interval has lapsed. So what folks have a tendency to do is work on a task for too long and their attention starts to fade. So some other strategies would be to self-talk and self-pace. Excuse me. So some of the self-talk and self-pacing tasks would be verbal mediation. And that's where you are going to talk yourself through the task. Step 1, I'm going to do this. Step 2, okay, now I have to cut the paper into 6-inch pieces. 3rd, now I have to write the numbers on the paper. Now, the next strategy would be to rehearse specific strategies, such as repeating what they are looking for. So like a descending number sequence on the sustained attention task. Self-pacing, to reduce the impact of information overload caused by decreased processing speed. So what happens is there's all this information coming in, and there's this traffic jam of information in the brain, and it's just too much. And so when we're doing tasks, if we try to do tasks too quickly, we need to slow down and to pause between steps, and also to pause between tasks. Oh, sorry about that. Let me go back. Okay. Okay. And then the use of positive self-statements to reduce frustration and fatigue. That's one of the big issues, is that folks will get very, very frustrated and just stop doing what they're doing. Or fatigue sets in and they're not able to go on. So monitoring that is extremely important. So one thing, we need to reduce distractions. So improving your attention span requires you to improve your mental clarity and focus. It's also important to remove any needless distractions. So you want to create an environment in which you don't have a million things competing for your attention. So for example, I had a patient that I was seeing, and I went to her home to do a treatment session. And her problem was the mail was piling up. And every day she would look at it, and she literally covered it up with a sheet. And she didn't want to see it. So we wanted to remove some of that clutter. So that was part of the therapy session, where we had her organize that and then put it into a filing system. And then once she did that, she said, I can't believe how well I feel. She said something as simple as sorting the mail. But in some instances, that's a very difficult task to do. So we want to focus on single tasks. While there are many who think they can capably multitask, this is a cognitive impossibility. There are some companies now that are not allowing their employees to multitask. The brain can't handle multiple tasks at once, but rather it switches rapidly between them. Trying to do too many things at the same time puts an undue strain on the brain, which can result in you getting tired more easily or doing sloppy work. Monotasking is really the only way to use your attention span effectively. Maintain a planner and a work calendar. So, avoid forcing your mind to strain to remember appointments or other priorities. Instead, use a planner or a calendar for your scheduling, freeing your mind to focus on the specific task at hand. The other thing is limit social media usage and discussions. Give yourself at least a few hours each day where you turn off notifications, minimize your social media windows, and place your phone on the silent mode. Use these uninterrupted blocks of work time to be creative and productive, as opposed to being swept up in various conversations. You should not be on your phone or online at least 1 to 2 hours before going to bed. It's the worst thing. You'll be laying there going, okay, I should probably respond to that person. Or, well, wait a minute, let me look at, another article about that item. And it's just going to keep you up. And the next thing you know, it's 2 o'clock in the morning and you should have been asleep by 10 or 11. Now, okay, strategies. So for most people, it's a case of implementing functional strategies and sticking to a few guidelines. First and foremost, self-awareness. Be aware of your current level of attention, concentration, and most importantly, fatigue. This will help you know when to when to attempt tasks and when to take a break. So one way is to create a scale from 1 to 10, with 1 representing total relaxation and 10 representing total stress and exhaustion. So when you're about to attempt a task, look at the scale. If you score between 1 and 4, you're ready to achieve things. If you're between 5 and 10, it's probably appropriate to take a break and attempt any tasks later. Internal distractions. They can also have an effect on attention. These are feelings such as stress or depression, which will occupy your mind and distract you from a task. It's important not to attempt tasks that require a great deal of concentration when you have these internal distractions. Some other internal distractions may be thoughts as well. Some people tell themselves that they will allow time later to think about things that are bothering them so that they can focus on the task at hand. If you feel anxious about completing a task, write down what worries you, and you'll often find that your fears are unfounded. Write down rational responses to irrational fears. The next strategy, build your confidence. Aim for progress rather than perfection when attempting a task. I have one patient, if she's not 100% accurate on a task, she has a meltdown. She just does not want to move forward. She was like, well, why can't I do that? I was able to do that before. If the task seems too big, make a plan that is specific and break it into smaller steps, giving yourself a break after each step. The brain needs to recharge. If things go wrong, try not to criticize yourself. Take a break, then attempt the task again, one step at a time. Congratulate yourself when you have completed a task. Look for wins. That's what we want. Completion of a step, that's a win. Planning. Planning and writing down a task can make it seem a little easier. I know there are some folks, when they write down the plan to complete a task, they may become overwhelmed with that. That's why we said, when you do a step, take a break after that step. So you're going to write down the steps, and part of that is including a brain break and a reward at the end. If things don't go as planned, you can stop and reattempt the task later in the day, or you can reattempt the task tomorrow. If there are lots of jobs to do, prioritize. Don't overload yourself. Agree to complete 2 or 3 small tasks each day. I'll take even 1 task per day. Be flexible if things are not going as planned. Stop, replan, take a break, do something else, then come back. Monitor your fatigue. This is probably one of the most important strategies we can use. Many folks with chemo brain suffer higher levels of fatigue than normal and must be aware that fatigue will have a major impact on attention capabilities. This means scheduling activities that require your attention at times when you feel at your best. Consider the environment. When you're trying to attend effectively in an environment that contains many distractions, it's unlikely that you're going to be effective. Reduce noisy distractions such as a TV, radio, or other people talking. If your environment's cluttered and messy, try to put things away. Working in a clutter-free environment is easier than working in a messy one. I know when my desk gets too many piles on it, I'm like, okay, got to step back. I got to put things away, because if not, pile number 2 is going to distract me, and I should really be working on pile number 1. So Allow plenty of time to complete tasks. We know now that tasks are taking longer to complete because the speed in which the information is being processed is slower right now. So you need to build in extra time. So a task that may have taken 30 minutes before may now take 50 minutes to complete. You need to build that in to your daily schedule. Eliminate distractions. Turn the TV off. If you can't change the environment, then try and move to a new environment. If you're unable to complete the task because of the distractions and we can't remove the distractions, write down the task and attempt it again later. Brain breaks. Set time periods for tasks and have a brain break before continuing. You can use alarms to prompt you and using the alarm on the mobile phone. The other strategy, maintain your health. Looking after all aspects of your general health will help you perform better on a daily basis. Nutrition, sleep, exercise, and relaxation. Those are the 4 areas you need to be aware of. Make sure you have a well-balanced and healthy diet. Stay well hydrated. Make sure you have a regular and sufficient nighttime sleep. Try not to nap during the day. Try and do some exercise every day to stay reasonably fit. Relaxation is sometimes overlooked, but contributes to a positive and healthy lifestyle. Everyone relaxes in different ways, but it's important to find some time every day to get away from your stress and worries. Going for a walk, meditating, doing yoga are all good ways of relaxing. Try not to multitask. Focus on one task at a time. Trying to multitask may mean that you achieve nothing or make a poor attempt at everything. If you must divide your time between 2 tasks, try and do one task that relies on mental concentration and one task that's physical. Listening to the radio while cleaning the sink, that's the example. If you're switching between tasks, try and take a small break between switching to give your brain time to adjust. Some people find it helpful to say aloud what they're doing when they change tasks to help them stay on track. Now, you want to develop active listening skills to manage conversations. There are going to be times when you need clarification. So you need to request extra information or repetition of information. Probing questions. You need to ask questions to gain further information. You may also need to paraphrase what the individual that is talking with you is saying. This allows the listener to make sure that you understood. Then you may also need to summarize. This pulls together all of the key points and concludes the topic. And so now this is just a checklist for attention skills. There's actually 2 pages for you. And it basically summarizes what we talked about. Learn to be self-aware. Monitor your attention. Monitor your fatigue. Schedule in breaks. Allow plenty of time to achieve tasks. Make a plan and break your task into smaller steps. Adapt your environment. Eliminate distractions. Evaluate and monitor distractions before starting a task. Be flexible. Stop, replan, reschedule if you need to. Develop systems of alarms and reminders to keep you focused. Manage internal distractions. If you're anxious, write down your fears. Do one task at a time. Allow brain breaks. Congratulate and reward yourself when you've completed a step or a task. Don't forget to maintain nutrition, sleep, exercise, relaxation. Self-monitor during conversations. Use those active listening skills. Don't be afraid to make other people aware of your difficulties. And work together with the folks that you are living with to adapt your environment. So, I want to thank you for your time and attention and your concentration. And if you have any questions, please feel to reach out. My office number is here, 412-586-6900, or my email address at goldainej@upmc.edu. So we can now, if I'd like to open it up for questions, comments, etc.
I'm going to stop the recording.